The Miami Dolphins, buddy, go into the fourth quarter trailing 21. Mike McDaniel is calling a masterclass offensively, but two pretty ugly interceptions early on from Tua Tagovailoa, a kick return touchdown from Devin Duvernay, really digs a big hole for the Miami Dolphins that in previous years, the Miami Dolphins, specifically Tua Tagovailoa, does not rally out of. This is a quote from Mike McDaniel. He says, "It's awesome to be critical of yourself," talking about Tua Tagovailoa. "It is good. He has a high standard for himself. But after about the last play, and he went and played, took his responsibility seriously to his teammates. He said, hey, I'm going to lead this team confidently. I think it was a moment that he'll never forget, that hopefully he can use moving forward. He threw two bad picks and didn't collapse. For honestly the first time in his career, leads a 21-point comeback, wins in regulation, over 460 passing yards, 6 touchdowns on the day. The box score stats are better than how Tua performed. That's fine. But you have to admit, this is one of the best performances of his career and one of the big positives for Miami Dolphins moving forward.
Oh, for sure, man. This is the other thing. I like the way that they've won 2 different ways in 2 different weeks, right? Defensively, what we talked about in the first week was, all right, look at this Dolphins defense. Of course, you got Waddle. Of course, you got Tyreek Hill and you got Gesicki. But in the second week, they go out there and have to put up points, especially in the fourth quarter, like you mentioned in that comeback. I like the fact that Mike McDaniel also is not just okay with this. He's beat now. He's beat a couple of really good coaches, a couple of coaches that people respect. In Harbaugh and Belichick. And on top of it, he's telling Mike Gesicki, if you can't block, you can't play in my offense, right? Because now everybody's fighting for reps, like Chase Edmonds, and everybody wants to be on the field with this offense right now. So I think the Miami Dolphins might be a little bit higher than you have them ranked right now at 8. I'm not mad if you start to creep into that top 5, top 6 realm, because we're talking about what they are, right? Not what they will be or not what we thought they would be coming into this season. And as you mentioned, Tua Tagovailoa, 6 touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at, right? And whenever you get those crazy kind of numbers like the Ricky Waters game where you have 5 touchdowns rushing, you're like, all right, what had to happen for you to have damn near a perfect game individually? Well, he threw the ball accurately and with anticipation. And even in the underthrows that you mentioned in your notes, Tyreek Hill, first of all, there's only 1 or 2 quarterbacks that's not going to underthrow Tyreek Hill if you got to go route. And that's Patrick Mahomes and that's Josh Allen. We knew Tua Tagovailoa had the, I won't say pop gun, reputation, but his arm isn't the biggest. So he has to play with anticipation. He has to play with that accuracy. And listen, Steve Young, Drew Brees, Joe Montana, like they are Hall of Fame quarterbacks who didn't have huge arms, but Troy Aikman, but they put it where it needed to be. And that's the task. Don't lose it, right? Drive this thing as far as you possibly can and spray the ball to different receivers. On Waddle's touchdown, they were shading over to Tyreek Hill. You're going to have one of those matchups damn near every single possession where you could take a shot if you're looking intermediate to deep. So I like what the Dolphins is doing right now because they've shown me they can win 2 different ways in the first 2 weeks of the season.
I absolutely butchered that Mike McDaniel quote and did not give it service. But what he's essentially telling Tua after that game is he's finally having fun, right? He's finally playing confident. He said in that post-game press conference, he said the absolute worst thing happened. He threw a pick and started pressing and threw another pick. The Tua before goes into his shell. It's that quote from The Replacements with Keanu Reeves where he falls into that quicksand and just starts to sink. And that's what we see from him. He instead really rallied, like you said, took the responsibility seriously to his teammates and played with confidence. I thought it was the most confidence we've seen Tua Tagovailoa play with his entire career. Now, it's important that the caveat is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, according to Next Gen Stats, averaged more than 3 yards of separation on the 22 targets that they had. Those kids were burning. The Ravens, who had an injury-battered, slow, young secondary, had no answers for Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think Mike McDaniel deserves a lot of credit for how he's dialing up this offense and all that stuff. Make all the excuses you want for why Tua threw up 460 yards. You can't create excuses for how he looked and how confident he played, specifically on third down. 7 completions, throwing past the sticks on third down alone in this game. 2 more than any other game he's played in. This is the second-ranked offense in EPA per snap, 5th in dropback pressure rate. The offensive line looks good. Teron Armstead hasn't allowed a pressure on a true dropback yet, 6th in EPA on clean dropbacks. This offense is deadly. That's Mike McDaniel. That's Jalen Waddle. That's Tyreek Hill. And finally, after playing terribly, awfully, underperforming to start his career, finally, Tua Tagovailoa.
Hey, shout out to the NFL for putting pressure on them after they learned that they were out here trying to tank games and the whole Brian Flores situation. And you won't convince me that this offseason isn't somebody pressing the button on the Dolphins ownership group like, hey, by the way, you got to make this right. So go out there and get one of the best left tackles in all of football. Go out there and get Tyreek Hill and put him around. I mean, we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa like we haven't seen him coming in terms of his pedigree. When he dropped down in Alabama, Kyler Murray, took that Heisman from him, but he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Of course, we'll get into Jalen Hurts, who, he unseated. Like, he's had to play with premium competition and against premium competition, I should say, his entire career. Now, this is the filtration process. And on top of it, if you look at it, like the last couple of, it wasn't like the Dolphins fell off the table. The Dolphins were a, average to below average team at times the last couple of years. And the clock started on him immediately. And then he hurt his hip. So
yes.
We haven't seen this kind of rookie introduction or young quarterback introduction in a while where it's like, hey, you ain't got no time to prove yourself. It has to be now. And on top of it, the pressure that this offseason puts on him, hey, man, first 2 weeks, I'm not the biggest Tua Tagovailoa fan, but I don't see how you can look at his first 2 weeks and say he hasn't lived up to what they're demanding of him, because in the end, if Mike McDaniel and this offense doesn't roll throughout the season, if it isn't sustainable, we're going to be looking at the quarterback position. So until he falters or until he drops off the face of the earth, or if he continues to play this way, we got to give Tua Tagovailoa a certain amount of credit, because there's a lot of quarterbacks who don't get rid of the football, who don't put it where it's supposed to be, and who aren't accurate. So you got to give him credit for finding those guys and letting them work.
Last thought on the Dolphins, and then we'll bring in Steven Ruiz later to talk some Tua. He's been a hater of Tua Tagovailoa lately. Mike McDaniel has proven through 2 weeks he's a quarterback elevator, really putting him in a position to succeed. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Cedric Wilson and Teron Armstead, those players, those upgrades are quarterback elevators. But Tua Tagovailoa, in this game specifically, did not answer any criticisms. It's just the first time we've seen him not suck. It's the first time we've seen him really push the ball downfield. It's the first time we've seen him play aggressively, play with confidence, and that matters, man. It's a small game samples. It's one game. He's still going to have a baby arm. That first interception was overconfidence and a comeback route that he just can't hit with that arm strength. But to do this and to get that, like McDaniel said, to get that under your belt, hopefully it's something he doesn't forget. Hopefully he can use it moving forward.